Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a long-awaited You Have to Wear Something. I have been gone for 6 months. Where has Nicole been? It has been a long year. Last year, I got engaged in May. Me and my guy Jerry of 3 years moved in October. We had a silver service in November, and moving to a house after you've been alone for 13 years is not for the weak. I had to mourn my bachelorette pad, but those things tend to take time and attention. But I am back in the best way, interviewing someone incredible. This is probably my third interview with Sadie, but the first on camera so you can see her beautiful face. Everyone, welcome Sadie Woods to You Have to Wear Something. Sadie is a multidisciplinary, post-disciplinary artist who has a bachelor's from Columbia University and Columbia College from Chicago,
Oh my
pardon,
gosh.
and a master's from the Art Institute of Chicago. I want to say it's in curation. Sadie has been an artist all her life, creating visual art as well as audio art and everything that goes in between. All her life since I met her at the age of 14 at Lane Tech High School. Welcome back to the show, Sadie.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's good to be here with you and have
Yes,
a
yes.
real conversation.
A real
A catch
conversation.
up.
Yeah, we're stuck here, real catch up as you know, as bonus sisters. And a lot has happened even since COVID in terms of the work. So I really want to talk about like the away. You ran a foundation. You've been very busy. I want to hear about the Atlantic Center for the Arts, the Public Art Commission, the Word is Bond, the People's Radio Life. Let's catch the people up. I want to say that's in the last 5 years. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. So we could talk about 2020, I think is a good kickoff point.
Yes, let's start there.
Yeah.
I kind of knew what was up till 20, and then I think things went a little bit into overdrive in terms of, you as an artist.
Yeah. So 2020 was really interesting because I kicked off the year participating in an artist residency in Brazil. And it was a part of an exchange program with Comfort Station and artists in Chicago with artists in Brazil. And they brought artists in Brazil to Chicago. And then they brought Chicago artists to Brazil as part of the exchange. I was just a part, I just tagged along with the artists that went to Brazil. And it was visual artists and sound artists. And so right after that, I also did I was a music director for Lit Lose Festival in Mexico. So I spent time in Salvador and Mexico City back to back, right when everything kicked off with COVID.
Oh,
So,
yeah, a great during COVID. What was like,
yeah.
not to pause it, but like the language barrier, was that an issue?
No, because we were in a group with folks that spoke Spanish and Portuguese fluently. So it was helpful in navigating that space. I know minimal, and I know like Spanish enough to get around, right? Or to ask for food and directions, and typical
Yeah, yeah.
travel Spanish,
It is,
and
black
and I
and
know how to curse in Spanish.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
the most important things.
yeah. Say Puerto Rican, y'all. She's black Puerto Rican. Okay. So it's in the blood, and she's many things. We're all indigenous, right? We can get to that too.
Right.
But okay, cool. So that was not an issue. Continue.
Yeah, and so it was cool because um, actually what I gained from that and what I learned from that is that my work speaks to folks in a great way outside of the states. Right, it was my first time being in both places, and the reception was really high, and um, it's something that I would like to continue to explore. Right, going back to Latin America and specifically like Mexico City and Salvador, I really like both of those places. Um, and then everything started to shut down, so I did come back home because I wasn't going to get trapped in a somewhere where I didn't have a means of making money or any kind of support. So I did come back home. Maybe I shouldn't have, but I did, regardless.
Well, you're the
um,
only woman, so I get it. You wanted to make sure.
yeah,
So you were like, let me check on my people.
yeah, yeah. So Um, so when that happened, I also really delved deeper into my sound practice and then doing radio. So I have a residency at Wave Farm in New York, and then Lumpin Radio here in Chicago, and then developing projects. So during that time, I also released It Was a Rebellion as a digital mixtape release. And prior to that, there had been like a series of activations that happened. Like the first time I performed that piece, it was actually a pirate radio broadcast that was stationed across the street from a police black site in North Lawndale neighborhood. And so it was initially performed to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. And so folks had been asking a lot about it, and it had toured in different gallery shows, but after several conversations like with friends and collaborators, it seemed really important to me to make the work accessible to the people, right? So it's not just contained within the white walls, right, or and within these institutional spaces. And so I released it during the uprisings, and it actually went viral. And so there was some coverage that it received from the Tribune and also the Sun Times between 2000 and 2020 and 2021. And then I worked on some visuals for that as well. Made a visual art piece that's like a poster, 12 by 18 by 18, kind of like an album cover size format.
Was him on
And
the cover, right?
hmm?
Is it was MLK on the cover?
Yes, with MLK.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I'm sure that I got the art right.
yeah, yeah, with MLK. And what else I'm trying to think? And I also released Party is Protest that same year. And so Party is Protest was a vinyl release that was created in partnership with artist Aram Hansi Fuentes that did this official, unofficial voting station for disenfranchised communities to vote and have a voice within elections. And so what I did was focus on Chicago-based musicians that use music as a form of social mobilization, and created a mixtape and had it be released as part of the project. And then there's like an extended playlist with music from all over the world that has to do with social political issues, and that's on Spotify. And so both of those projects kind of took off during that time. And then I also participated in a book club that was designed around Johanna Fernandez's Young Lord's book that was published around that time. And that has developed into a relationship where I'm now on the, I'm a curatorial advisor for the Latinx Freedom Project that's going to be unveiled this year nationally. So it'll be in Chicago, New York, LA, Houston, and some other places. And I'm part of the Chicago chapter where the Young Lords originated. And yeah, those are some of the things that have been developing over the time during COVID. There's a lot of creativity happening, and also starting over at ground zero because a lot of things were shut down. There was a lot of transitions that happened during that time period. I also produced another album during that time period with Chicago Sinfonietta, and that was a partnership with Black Madonna Press, the Esther Gates Black Madonna Press, and the Vinyl Factory, and then Street Level Media in Chicago. And so that featured classical musicians and young and up and coming rappers that created the content for the mixtape, and it was documented by young photographers from the program as well. And that ended up being an international project by the support of the Vinyl Factory in the UK. And so that was a pretty big deal as far as my series of vinyl releases that have been put out. That's the biggest project I've had to date.
Yeah, and I have to get some vinyl. I know a ton of vinyl collectors, some authentic and inauthentic, right? It's a thing. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that overall, I'm glad that vinyl has become revered and respected. The sound is very different.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to go back to what you were saying about music and social justice protests. Do you think that whether intentional or not, Black people, brown people, when they make music, when they become musical artists, whether they like it or not, do you feel like it's um, all political, like all a political statement, whether they're trying or not? Like, I feel like I'm a walking political statement as a Black woman because my skin is different. You know what I mean? Like, I can't
Yeah.
separate the two. I can't separate the oppression, the marginalization, right? So even if someone, even if it's, you know, from operas to like Uncle Luke, right? Like, is
Mm-hmm.
it, in your opinion, a social justice statement?
I mean, from my research and of course, like my interest in love and music has always been like first in the root of all the stuff that I've done, even in visual arts and even like with the travels that have come to that, like the main motivation for me to go to most countries that I've been to had been through because of the music, right? It wasn't really anything else. Like it, it's always been the drive for me um, to explore and also inspiration and that curiosity that has driven me to do a lot of the things that I've done in life. And with that research and also what I would consider field research is by actually going to the places and seeing for yourself like what creates these kind of cultures, is that literally every genre of music was created out of protest. Like
Yeah,
literally every
I always
time.
like to listen to the lyrics of early salsa. It's about, people who were enslaved and liberation and then political upheaval, things like that.
Yeah, because it's part of cultural memory, and that is the one thing that has always been targeted for us to forget who we are and to lose our traditions and our customs, our spirituality, our connection to the land, to each other, and creating divide, right? And creating all these divisive weapons of war, right? Is technically what I would call it. And music has served as record keeping is within the oral traditions of many indigenous cultures, right? And it's ephemera, but it is also it's history. It is a record, and literally a record. Um, it with as far as like recording and archiving um, histories of people and what is happening. I do think that it is also important to remember that we have history before enslavement as well, or being prisoners of war. Like that is not what defines us. That's always what is projected onto us, and we are constantly putting in a position where we have to um, defend our space or feel like we have to have these supercharged motivations to do things. And it is already a form of resistance to, as you said, just be in existence, right?
Mm.
Existing is a form of resistance, and remembering our history and who we are is also a form of resistance. And having cultural stewardship and memory keeping is also a form of resistance, right? Because that is essentially what the powers that be, quote unquote powers that be, have fought to do, is right, institutionalize people, customs, culture, all the things that we are and that we embody. So music, yeah, it is that, but it is also something that celebrates who we are, right? And it's something that we should, take pride in and know that we don't always have to be in this position where we're supercharged and defending something, right? Because that is ultimately like um, a lot of energy extraction and and taken away from
Like
focusing on
hitting the
things.
streets vibe all the time.
Yeah, it's like energy harvesting.
Yeah.
Isn't
Lighting
and there's
glass
there's
make you
yeah,
fatigued, you're drained, and then
yeah,
yeah, it
yeah.
drains you. Um, can people access these vinyls? Like, can they buy them?
Yeah, well, the Party of Protest is not. It was a limited edition that was given in 2020, so like there, it was only 100 printed at
Okay.
the time. Maybe there'll be a reissue at some point, but it is available online for download and for listening for streaming.
Okay.
Um, the Gimme Shelter mixtape is available for purchase through the Vinyl Factory website, um, and I also have a few copies. Each artist got some copies, and so um, if folks are interested, they can reach out or they can purchase it on the Vinyl Factory website. Um, I also did one for the Hood YZ too, and that
What's
that
the
is available.
YC?
The
Because I'm
Hood
right.
YZ is a local talk show that was
Okay.
created by Ricardo Gamboa, and
Okay.
so yeah,
Ricky.
and Ricky, yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, and so they also released a vinyl during COVID. So there is another vinyl that is available just through the Hood YZ, um, that features all of the artists that perform, well, a selection of artists that perform on the show, and they're all Chicago-based artists as well. So that is something that was important to me, was to create like this archive of Chicago artists, so that there is a recorded history of folks that have come through these sorts of these channels, right, or within these networks, and are necessarily featured on works together as a group, and also documenting like what has happened, like with the Hood YZ or with the official unofficial voting station, or with Chicago Sinfonietta, because the program that I was doing with them was one that I designed, and there hasn't been anything that's been replicated similarly since I've left there.
Period. Which is very on brand for Sadie, y'all. I will create something that no one else has created before. Um, Tell me about when the world started to open up and what that next phase was.
So for me, that looks like leaving blue states and going to red states because everybody was outside. Right? They weren't doing all the restrictions, and so I had
Cabin
to
fever
really,
was real. Uh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
There's some real lockdowns. It was physical, it was mental,
yes.
and emotional for some people. Like I know some folks that have not recovered from that mentally.
Nope.
And so, yeah, I mean, a lot of folks. And so I really had to move out of that space of living in fear, right? And being afraid to connect with people, because that's never been who I, I am as a person. But I had some challenges, in Chicago within that, because there's a lot of restriction, and folks were really um, freaking out, for lack of a better way to describe what was going on. But people were having real like freakouts, and it was hard to engage with folks. So I was looking for work, with things that I'm passionate about in a more open environment, and I ended up moving to Florida to direct a residency program, and it was actually in area on 69 acres of protected land, so it was part like still natural
I
wildlife happening
send
on campus. Yeah,
trying to send mail to you was a whole production.
yeah.
I'm like, did you get it? She's like, I didn't get it.
Yeah, no, it was an interesting experience. That I do like love the nature and the integration of nature within everyday life
Mhm.
in Florida, and the laws that they have that protect the wildlife. Like for instance, you can't run over tortoises and turtles. You have to stop for them. You know.
I'm shocked and amazed that this was happening
Yeah,
for 65 years. So
yeah.
some things they believe, other things they don't believe. So,
Right.
you know,
Those things like I can get with,
yeah, don't kill the
um
turtles, doctor. Okay.
don't kill the turtles, man. This is Turtle Island after all.
Right.
So, um but other things, I mean, there's there's things that are, I think, just ingrained and embedded within nonprofit culture and institutions that you just, it doesn't matter what stage you're in, you're going to encounter. Um, and so that wasn't really like news for me, but the level of audacity, I'll say, and also just comfortability to do some things in regards to leadership was just what can I say? It was just like
You weren't in alignment, girl.
it was not in alignment with me, and that's okay.
You're about
And
something that is
that
okay.
is okay. It was not in alignment with me, and
Yeah.
God said, you did your duty. It's time for you to move on.
I said
And
it's
that's what happened. And so I'll leave it at that. But the best part and the only motivation really for me to do work like that is always about the artist.
mm-hmm.
And I would say that as an artist and as someone who has worked in arts administration since being a teenager, I do understand the importance of arts administration, and it is something that that is lacking is the giving credit to artists who are also administrators and also understanding what artists needs from an administrator. It is not necessarily, it is not, I'll just say, it is not from a corporate person who has no understanding of what being an artist is or has no kind of artistic background. And that is what is happening now is a lot of these leadership positions are being given to people in corporate or with corporate backgrounds who have maybe great experience in fundraising. And of course, there needs to be those elements within a leadership role, but there is a level of detachment and also just really detached and what is the word I'm looking
Maybe
for?
out of touch and antiquated.
Out of touch and very out of
Say
touch.
it loud, y'all. Put
Yeah, out of touch.
the seats out of touch. Stay out of touch.
Out of touch. Out of touch
And
approaches.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I just want to say too that like Sadie knows she's talking about like our first art classes together outside of Lane Tech were at Marlin.
Hmm.
Found a Marlin. I'll send it to you. A pamphlet for Sarah Hoskins' class from
You
'97.
still have it?
I have it.
Oh wow. Wow.
Sarah Hoskins put the cameras in our hand, y'all. My first camera was Sadie's father's camera. Um, oh man, I didn't even plan for this.
Oh wow.
This is
Yeah.
my tchotchke. I got my Dieter Rams, but all
Wow.
my beloved, my Carlo DeLeo pieces.
I love that.
Um, but this is so
Man.
crazy. This is actually her dad's camera. I think we started in
95?
95,
94.
and we need to buy a camera. I think I bought it for $100. I had a light leak, central
And
camera,
we fix it. Central
fixed
Camera fixed
light
it.
leak, because that does happen. Rubber degrades.
Hmm.
So if you're buying vintage cameras, just know that things don't last forever, and it might need resealing, because light will kill that film. But it's Nikon FM. There's serial number. They're handmade in Japan. And I still shoot with this camera. Yeah.
Damn. You gotta send me a picture of that so I can send it to my dad.
Oh, oh yeah. Oh, oh
Yeah,
yeah.
like,
This is also the original thing. Every year I'm like, I'm gonna get a new strap, but the strap is fine. I just want like either just a
yeah.
cute strap change.
You can have one that changes out,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
change
yeah,
out,
but
yeah.
yeah, and then you can still put like a flash on top. It's got the grooves, and I have lenses for it and stuff. But Nikon FM, handmade, it's like spectacles that are handmade in Japan. You already know
Yeah.
that the Japanese people rebranded themselves and now just focus on perfection instead of, imperial takeovers. But yeah, that's so crazy. I was behind me. This is so much like saying so integrated in my life, y'all, that it's just stuff. It's her art's everywhere too. You got like your photos are like on our salon
Oh wow.
wall in our new house. So anyway, I say all that to say that we know about both sides of, being I guess the receivers of nonprofit services and also being administrators, because I believe you were at Marvin Foundation for 11 years, right? What was your
Yeah,
time there?
it was like yeah, like nine years
Oh, okay.
between being like a student and then working there. And I just want to add that my experience there was really unique, and I'm thankful for it because I was able to actually be a student, then be a teaching assistant, then be a teacher, then also run programs and design programs and run the gallery space, and that's not necessarily an experience that most people get to have.
Mm-hmm.
And I've grown a lot within that space. I've pretty much met everyone that's been a part of my career at some point through working there, at least in Chicago, um, and the lessons and the discipline and the work that I learned there has been something that's carried me through other places, right? And it's actually informed a lot of how I operate in other places that don't have as well of a structure, um, or functioning structure within programs, right? Or understanding like how departments interface with each other, or delineation of what responsibilities belong to, what department, or, and what education requires, like what kind of education programming that I were designing included like applications for grad school or applications for residency programs. I created the first residency program that was like in the early 2000s, right? And so I really, really learned that I actually do love this kind of work, and I do see it as a service that is needed for artists, and really at any age. It doesn't really have an age limit. That's something else that I learned. Like there's a lot of focus for folks like to get into school, maybe have some support a year or two after they're done with their undergrad, but an artist's career is their whole lifetime, right? So like how do you provide support at different stages of people's career, and a lot of that is lacking, and there isn't like a cookie cutter answer to that, or a cookie cutter way of operating within a trajectory to get to a certain point in your career. But it's important to maintain those networks, and it's even something that I've had to navigate for myself, right? Like I would love to have someone like me that
Yeah.
that
That were
that
you,
you can,
were you that taught you,
yeah.
and just piggybacking on what you were saying about Marlin Foundation, that's Marwen, guys, it was a very small program in the loft when Sadie and I um, took photography together. And the reason that those programs existed is because of underserved communities and the offboarding of the arts in high schools and middle
Hmm.
school. I was still part of a generation, Gen X, shout out to Gen X
Gen
forever.
X.
Is that there were still music programs, in middle school, grammar school, high school when we were there, but it became down to resources, and resources are slim. It's one of the first things that get cut. And so Marlon, right time in the 90s when this wave was picking up. So grateful forever to Sarah and you. And, I was more of a college prep. Like I was an artist, but my parents were IT professionals. So they were like, you cannot do art professionally, which please stop telling your kids that. I think we're finally in a place of understanding where if someone plays a guitar and lean into that, they can make a living playing the guitar.
Hmm.
They are not a loser. They
Yeah.
could be a genius. um, but I was kind of pressured to kind of, art was something you did for fun as a hobby, and college prep. Pass your ACTs, SATs, get into a good school, get a good job. And it's protection, right? Boomers train you to live conservatively because they know what it's like out there for Black
Yeah.
and Black people, and they don't want you to suffer and have a rough time. So there's a lot of assimilation training that goes into raising creative Black and brown kids at that time, right?
Right.
Anyway, but similar to Sadie, Marlin, I also that was my first series of pretty, disciplined art classes, teachers that were actual artists in real life. I was able to be a teacher's assistant there as well and teach. I also sold my first pieces of art there. I was like, someone bought my artwork for $300 in the 90s, baby. I was rich. I was like, and then I also read about that Uncle Sam piece in the gallery cut. The gallery they go get there. But usually it's 60/40. I don't even know if
Hmm.
it's that good anymore, but the gallery gets 60 just to make it clear to you youngins out there, but they might even get more depending on what your deal is.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, you learn about that nonprofit systems, how art is monetized, you know, how the gallery system works, and we did in one place.
Yeah, and we did, and we're really, I think, lucky to have had that experience. And Marwin is much bigger now. I don't know if you
Oh
knew
yeah,
about
she.
the
Oh
build.
hell,
It's bigger
shout out to.
now.
Oh, oh my God! Like I mentor from before. Her name was me right before Aquila. Who ran it forever?
Who? Which one?
That was head of it.
Aquila. Aquila.
But
Aquila's.
before,
Oh, Antonia Concho.
yes,
Antonia.
and
Yeah.
yeah, Antonia,
Yeah.
like a stateswoman,
Yeah.
truly.
Yeah. Antonia's very fierce, and I've gotten to know her better actually, like through work. So one of the first jobs that I had when I joined was to be the front desk coordinator, and then I was also assisting like the executive director. So I got to actually have a better understanding of how she operates and her role like within the organization. And schmoozing and money was never like my thing. Like I would be like, never,
It's
like don't
definitely
sign
my
me
thing.
up for that shit. I'm like, I don't want to deal with none of that.
Smooth is definitely that's why we work in as friends and in school and in the world because it's definitely
Yeah,
my thing. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So I was like, okay, you do that. I'm gonna be over here do
but
this.
right.
Okay. But I've actually got to learn more about her artistic practice. So like something I learned from Antonia is that she made sure that she negotiated one day a week where she has studio time. Then that was I think Wednesdays, and so she would not be available. She'd be in her studio working, and then she would do the rest of her work the whole time. But she always maintained her artistic practice, and that is something that she was like, you always have to make sure that you fight for that space and don't give it up for no one because it's important, right? It's a part of you. Like when you're a creative person, it never dies. It doesn't go anywhere, right? So it's important to understand that as a part of yourself that you also have to feed, right? And if you can't be really good to anyone else if you're not feeding yourself or being taking care of yourself in all the ways, right? And those are one of the ways that you do have to take care of yourself is your creative self.
Of course.
Yeah.
Going back to what you're saying, and we jump around. I said jokingly to Sadie earlier that like we've never had a linear conversation in our lives. So I'll try to keep the train on the tracks. And shout out to my journalism degree. But when you say like make sure you're doing your own thing, like here we are, that you don't, the internet democratized things as well, and you can kind of find space and make a boundary and do your own thing with the internet. It's the gift and the curse, but if you use it as
Yeah.
it's good. But you were talking about Young Lords and your dad was involved, correct?
My dad was not involved. And okay,
Oh,
so my dad actually was the Black Panthers were trying to recruit him when he
okay.
was younger. And
Okay.
coming from the West Side, right? Because that's where Fred Hampton was, right? Like my
Mhm.
dad's family is from the West Side, and so there was just a lot of incidents and violence that was happening at the time. And he had
Mhm.
older brothers, so he did not join the Black Panthers because there was already just a lot to deal with every day surviving in that during that climate. My mom which I'm learning through doing this work, and really revisiting some of the things that she did while we were growing out was while we were growing up in Humboldt Park. So I grew up between Lakeview and Humboldt Park, right? And Lakeview was historically a Puerto Rican neighborhood as well, right? But it was super gentrified. Wicker Park was black and brown, gentrified, right? And then you have Humboldt Park, which is kind of going through the same thing right now.
Local
Um,
Square, all of it.
Logan Square, yeah, all of that. And so um, my mom was more involved, and this is just something that young people did. It wasn't like they were seeking to be a part of politics, but it was really more about advocacy
Mm-hmm.
and you know, for the community and the well-being of their community and the people in it. And so I'm learning that she did a lot of like student-led activities within Clemente High School, right, with some of my other cousins and uncles and aunts that were there as well. That's where both my parents met. They met in high school. My dad did leaned in more to the arts, and so he was involved with TV and radio, and so he did like these student films that had to do with discrimination, employment, gangs at the time. And so, and my mom did more of the volunteering at the cultural centers, doing student led protests, right? That were just literally like, one of my cousins was upset about some injustice that they did with one of the teachers. I think that some incident happened. And so she decided to just leave class and create a sign and march outside. And so my mom was like, cool, I'll join you, because they was family and that's what you did at the
Yeah,
time. Like, you
yeah.
know?
Well, right was right and wrong was wrong. It looked kind of clear, and people
Yeah.
probably had like more reactionary courage, I would say, at that time.
Yeah.
And with the you know, so much information coming in to our lives every day. It's overload and it's overwhelming. And you have a lot of paralysis by analysis.
Yeah.
It's like muddy, but at the end of the day, what's right is right.
Yeah. And that's all by design, right? Like, I can admit that I have like probably internet fatigue. Like, I'm really taking some time away from being on it as much, although it is required for some communications. But at a certain point, like, I just have to, you know, shut it off. Um, and and work on being present, right? Like, there's a level of distraction that comes with that as well. And
Mhm.
um, but yeah, like with the Young Lords and the Black Panthers, like, it was a part of the culture, and these initially were initiatives that came from the community to advocate for, you know, the health of the community, right? And it was simple. It was simple, and then it turned into these like hyper politicalized movements, um, and people were targeted, and there were real consequences for that. And so the level of involvement varied, but my mom has always been really a strong advocate for Puerto Rican culture and preservation, and used to go to all the town halls.
Oh,
Excuse
I
me.
know. I've been to the parade with you and your
You
mom.
know, yeah. So,
Like,
and
being going crazy. The parade's coming. Like,
yeah, yeah, she was that person. She still is that person. And then, you know, what she's been more involved with now is like, as she's older, is really being at all the festivals. That's like her thing,
mm,
and really being engaged in the culture in that way. And I'm glad that I can be able to include her in work that I do. And I do think about, you know, both of their upbringings with during those times, and those that is what informs a lot of the work that I do.
of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and then that's everything you're making is like legacy, right? You kind of passing the torch. And work, art, it's forever. That's why, like you said, you can't put their age limit on it.
Yeah.
Um, but let's pick up mid 2020s, and you're doing a lot of other things. I want to hear about La Hora Feliz, happy hour.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, just some of the like the one about the video footage from Chicago. Name escapes me.
Oh,
Uh,
is it By Your Side? Is that
right
the home movies? Yeah.
on I love how you use Helen whole name. Her government name is Helen Way, lovingly
Yeah.
known by us as Sade.
Right.
Um, but yes, by your side. Yeah, tell me about those two projects.
Those two projects actually also happened in 2020. And
Okay,
so there was
you
so much happening.
girl, you also we don't understand that when if you take work and money away, what probably people will probably do is art.
Yeah. You got to have something. I mean, that's really, I think, what got people through the times, right? Like, people were looking for ways to escape through entertainment. I mean, that's how Club Quarantine kicked
I
off.
love
You know what I
it.
mean? Like,
I was wondering if
yeah.
Chris because his he wasn't ready to create a movement, right? Like he just was stuck in the house, had the DJ equipment. Like I'm just gonna play some music. He DJ for himself. He played music for himself, and he knows how healing it is. And it just got bigger, and that's where I was there like every day with my little bit of wine, gained 3 pounds, And then fast forward, that scene in Sinners, uh,
Mm-hmm.
where you had the multi-generational arts and culture, the part that a lot of the white collective was like, this was an unnecessary part of the film. He should have cut that out. It takes me out of the film, which I'm like,
Nobody asked you.
no. But now after a lot of think tanks, we don't care either way,
No.
our stuff. But it was a part that immersed me more into the film.
Mm-hmm.
But fast forward, they were even included hip hop and a DJ in that scene. And for the Oscar performance, D Nice was the featured
Mm-hmm.
DJ, along
Yeah.
with Buddy Guy, which I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Buddy Guy's like 100 years old. People are like now discovering Buddy
It,
Guy. Baby, Legends has been on. Like
it's been on, but you know what? He deserves his flowers while
he
he's
does.
alive. And
He
so
does.
I'm glad that that happened, you know?
Yes. Yes, he deserves it. He was a lady and he had a good time and acknowledgement still feels good.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, those two pieces. I love the processed foods and
Oh, yeah.
the recipes. Tell
Man.
people about that.
So, yes, Happy Hour, La Hora Feliz is a project that Edra came to me about. And so um, we had talked about making this kind of like TV show during, COVID times so people, for entertainment purposes. But it does touch on the history of processed foods in Puerto Rico and in a place that at one point was rich with natural resources, including like natural foods, right? Whole foods. Um, and thinking about how we arrived to this space, right, where you have all these kind of these products and exports that are have really no nutritional value, right? And
Mhm.
also thinking about what's happening with the land there and the farming, the farmers. Um, and when we first started, like I was, at first it was like, yeah, I recognize all these things because I would see this in my kitchen pantry,
Mm,
right? And
like the spam and stuff like spam.
yeah,
Dude, spam.
yeah,
And
and
like,
and because my parents ate that, and I ate it at one point too. Like
yeah.
you know, and I could relate to it because a lot of the way I was cooking when I was younger was all food that came out of cans or bottles or a box, right? Aside from eating fresh, fruits or a salad, really basic practices for preparing food, and that took me until I got older to really get into cooking. Like really happened when I moved to France. Is where it started, and I had well, not really. I won't say that. I'll say probably in your house was one of the introductions to some alternative, yeah,
My,
alternative,
I guess I took it for granted because you're not the only one that says that.
yeah.
For clarity, I have some bonus parents and my aunt and uncle. My uncle really well. My aunt and uncle, my aunt was rest in power, Sheila. She was a alternative doctor, a chiropractor, naturopath, licensed nutritionist, and acupuncturist. And the disciplines go on and on and on. Probably all of them, Rita. I mean,
Yeah.
you go into her house and it's that type of ugly house where there's like Bhagavad Gita, there's Shiva, there's Jesus, there's Buddha. She even had a picture of Harriet Tubman up on the wall. So, it was that kind of home. And the first thing she taught me to make was tabbouleh from scratch. And that became our holiday salad because it was just something healthier. There's not a ton of value in head lettuce. It's just water. Sometimes it's even toxic because of pesticides. So, I feel you on that. And I look back and I'm like, wow, my uncle was vegetarian in the 70s. That was very like early adoption of him saying like, they put wax on the fruits in the grocery store to make it attractive, but you don't need wax. Like probably the ugly organic fruit is probably the best fruit. So, it was like a lot of that, but yeah, there's still tradition and memory even in the processed food.
Yeah, yeah, and there's definitely a tradition, um, and we actually we recreated this where she cooked these dishes, and when we were in Brazil together with the artist group,
Mm.
and so I DJ'd and she made the actual dishes and people ate them. Um, but I started thinking a bit more critically around that time too because like being an artist and administrator, there's a lot of invisible labor that happens, and there's a lot of neglect of self that happens as well when you're overworking yourself. And so I had realized that I was doing that to myself, and I needed to change how I was eating and be and make some major changes. And so what really happened during COVID for me was I did become one of those home cooks because I had time. And so,
Wow, you're
um,
this. I
yeah,
mean, I had a really great. I mean, my mom definitely could have been a chef. Like, not even eyes closed, pinch of salt, like not measuring, not timing anything, like naturally good. Which is a blessing. Um,
yeah,
and I was like, man, let me channel some of that during COVID.
yeah. No, it was real. I mean, that so I decided to commit to being a vegan because my body was not breaking down meats and it was causing a lot of inflammation. And
Mhm.
um, the only way that I knew that I could actually commit is if I learned how to cook food I liked or learn how to make vegan versions of food that I like to eat, and then I could transition from there. So that is what COVID gave me, was the time to actually do that. And so I had revisiting this project with Edra, I had been thinking back about how I was eating growing up, and then really diving a bit deeper to like a lot of things that we consume have come from militarization of the land, of people, of customs, and amongst other things. But I was thinking about that specifically, and canned foods and over salted foods for preservation, things like that, that end up causing hypertension, diabetes, all these other things.
Mhm.
And so revisiting that, and then also looking at the culture, right? Like the clips of the people from the TV shows, they're like entertainers, showgirls, um, and everything is like spectacle, right? Although there's culture there, they're definitely embedding things like salsa, right, or these other forms of resistance, and then you have spectacle on top of it because it's over the top, like uh, Latin American TV, which we know is like, you know, a lot of spectacle going on. But there are things underlying, right there. There's always like substance underlying there, and that is that is what I gathered from like revisiting this, because this piece is now toured and it's actually in an exhibition in San Juan in a modern art museum. So um, it's interesting to revisit now because I do want to re-explore that, but re-explore what that actually what the impact of that was on the island, because we see it right with after Hurricane Maria, right, with the blackouts that are happening, with the cutting off of resources, the Jones Act, all that stuff is there, is underlying underneath that.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Um, Bad Bunny,
Mm-hmm.
some of this. What did you think about the execution of his uh his show, his Super Bowl halftime show?
I think, I mean, I read a lot of think pieces on it. I didn't want to see it just for myself because I wanted to see what he was going to do, but people have been critiquing him for a long time, and I think all artists, to a degree, need some critique. But I think it's also unrealistic to look at artists as a political savior, because
Yeah.
it's not necessarily the role of a artist or one person. And then also, being an artist, you also have to know when you're being used as a pawn, right?
Mhm.
And then also knowing your limitations within the role that you're playing. And it's a really fine line with that, especially if you're working within institutional spaces. And that comes at any scale of being an artist. And something I learned with going to grad school, like as an adult who has lived life and going back to school and focusing on the studio practice, a lot of what I saw is the encouragement for artists to expose their vulnerabilities for points for relatability, right? And then usually the folks that are putting all their vulnerabilities on the lines are the artists that get the most press, the most praise, and the most acknowledgments. And so I'm not going to go too deep in that, but it's not something that I don't agree with that. I don't think that it's necessary to put all of your vulnerabilities on the line for spectacle, right? Like it becomes a spectacle at a certain point. And it should not be an expectation, especially for artists of color or artists of difference, because um, we should have the right to make work that doesn't have to do or be labeled as identity politic based work, um, because we're still operating um, within these categorizations, right? Like that are created within institutions, right? And so, like, if I want to go create work about frolicking or whatever, I should be able to do that and not necessarily have to create work that's
Yeah,
always politically charged or
yeah. I love this thing of, for me as a Black woman, there's this thing, I'm sure you've seen, it's like the 92%, like those who, for a long time, marginalized folks have voted for the correct thing, the right thing. This is going back centuries, right? And we're, and what do? We do? We hit the streets, right? So we are the victim of it as well as the solution. You can't be the victim and the solution. So why are we doing the heavy lifting of protest and, resistance, literally putting your body and your lives on the line, same as our ancestors did, because it's a white problem for the most part. Like if white supremacy, racism, classism, sexism, and how they intersect is from capitalism, which is the baby of colonialism, how are we dying for is going to solve it? They have to dismantle it's their system, So I always think about that. Like my dad was in Vietnam. He's like, none of you all are going to be in the armed forces, period. You're not going to be in the armed forces. You will be on the front lines. We don't take
they don't
about,
take care of veterans.
we don't take care of veterans
No.
at all the minute you get in there, they're like, you are the property of the United States government. They tell you when to open your eyes, close your eyes, eat shit, live, shower, your property, sounding like slavery to me. So, um, like you can't even go to college until you finish your 4 year, you know? Um, using that as an anchor. But I say all that to say that like him fighting on behalf of America, being a patriot in Vietnam didn't change a damn thing. He was used. And Black men, 35% of the front line was Black men, even though they were only 8% of the population. Like, make it make sense. But, you know, we digress. But I hear what they're saying that an artist should be able to just make their art. There's people who are like, do pole dance performance and they get flack for that. That's like I'm 100% behind that because
Yeah.
that's their art. That's their art, and it's a lot of work and their expression is their expression, so yeah. But
And
yeah, you
at a certain point, I think it just requires no participation. And whatever that means, there just has to be a level or limitation of participation in um, these systems and what's, in order to protect oneself, right, as much as possible. Or, as the old saying goes, be in the world but not of it, right? Like knowing how to navigate that space, but not, not
be
being married to it. Yeah.
yeah. And we can't anyway, like I can't pass I like let me shit, I ain't gonna get the best like but of course there's also you have so many projects all the time. I know you have a really big one coming out. Love to know what led to. I know it hasn't talked yet, and some of it's confidential, but the public art space, but not
Yes.
what started about. And I may be there in May or June, but I'd love to see it. So talk to me about that
Yes.
lab.
Yes. The We Still Here is the one that's opening on April 8th, and that project has come from a series of conversations that started actually during COVID as well, and my own journey in research in my family history and lineage, and so it's something that I've had interest in for a long time. But of course, like life gets busy, and you only have so much time to do these self-led projects, right? But it became something that came to the forefront during COVID. Like so many things, like literally so many things started happening during that time period, which I'm thankful I had the time to actually get those downloads and pursue those things. And so the precipice of the project is looking at the history of tribes and nations that are in the Midwest, right? And I'm coming to this approach through my own family history, so I'm not speaking on anyone else's experience. It's strictly about my family history because I'm doing a collaboration with an artist named Sonia Henderson, who's a sculptor and is a renowned public sculptor as well. And we had been talking about this, like collaborating on something, and we have a lot of similarities and actually like similarities in family history, like family from Louisiana, like in certain things that we like we
Oh
both
no,
love,
we cousins.
you know what I'm saying?
We went to Louisiana too, and like we probably
Yeah,
act with cousins, saying, but
I
anyway.
know we're probably cousins, but 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 yeah, so we just kept talking, and then this opportunity came up to propose a project as a monument response project. That's a part of the Chicago Park District initiative under the Chicago Monument Project. And so this has been going on for some time, and we just applied to do this thing, and so we got accepted to do this, and so we chose General Sheridan Monument on Belmont and Lakeshore Drive.
Lincoln Park.
and in Lakeview. It's actually like right when you get off the expressway. So it's not in the park, but just it's like a small triangle.
Got it.
Um, and it's actually a bus stop. There's like two bus stops on either side. And I chose this because it's in the area where I grew up. It's like down the street from where I grew up in Lakeview. And as much time as I mean, I've been there so many times. I never really paid attention to this sculpture because it wasn't something that I was like, I just was never really engaged in that kind of way. Where some folks, people in the community actually go there and care for the plants and are really into the sculpture. It is a great piece of work. I will say that. But the character, not the character, but the person, General Sheridan, is not necessarily someone that was on my radar for someone to acknowledge, right? So it wasn't something I engaged with in that way, although I spent much time there in that area. But General Sheridan was the commissioner, I believe, during the Great Chicago Fire, and he had a known scorched earth policy. And he also said that the only good Indian he saw would be a dead one, right? Like there's a famous quote for him. And so we're looking at his role in the history that we know of him as being kind of like this championed figure for saving Chicago during the Great Chicago Fire that was started by a cow that kicked over a lantern, Mrs. O'Reilly's lantern or whatever. But in actuality,
Try to debunk that, but
yeah, that is what we're told in school.
Different story.
Yeah, and so what really we're looking at is the scorched earth policies that took place in the military campaigns that took place to scorch certain areas where there were bison, American bison, that were wild, in order for them to carry out westward expansion, because that's what happened. And it didn't just happen in Chicago, it happened like throughout the states. But he was the main figure during the Great Chicago Fire that is championed as someone who who was a great person during his time, knowingly having carried out these military campaigns. And so with the decimation of the bison also led to decimation of whole ecosystems, because there were plants that disappeared, there were insects that disappeared, there were birds that disappeared, as well as people, right? And a lot of the time when people talk about, especially like in land art or these ecological projects that are trending for people to do, like art projects based on the earth and this in certain areas, what they always do is separate people from the land as if they did not coexist. And it is another form of erasure that happens within those spaces, and it is it's something that we decided to focus on. And so, like, looking at the tribes and nations that were also in that area did come through the Great Migration. They also came through migrations from the Caribbean, including folks from Puerto Rico. And so I'm just talking about my family's arrival and their experience in Chicago through the Great Migration and through Puerto Rico. Well, Borican, I'll say that. Borican is the actual name. Puerto Rico is not the name for the island, is that, so we're talking about those things. And the approach is to talk about the American bison because it is a central figure within the conversation. And since we started this project, something that happened actually is that they have been returning bison to Illinois. So they're now, there's 2 herds that have returned to Illinois since we started this conversation, which is great. It's funny. And I do hope to I would like to actually go see for myself.
Yeah.
But they returned. I've had dreams of bison for some time, even before we started this project. Um, I would say this actually started too, like right before the pandemic. Like I dreamt about um, bison and my grandmother actually, who just passed, right? And so like it kind of started there, and it's been revisiting in different forms up until we started this project. So I feel like it was something that was developing without me even knowing that I would arrive at this space, um, and has been with me. So I'm just following uh, the alignment that's happening with this project. It's been really interesting to see things unfold. And so what we decided to do was create two bison horns. Initially, we were thinking about a gateway, but we decided to actually frame them around the plinth of the statue. And the bison horn will be covered with a bone quilt, and that includes like recreation of bison bones, skulls, as well as like prairie flora and fauna. So there'll be some plants as well, and we will be working with the Peggy Notabart Nature Museum to plant actual prairie plants within there. So it'll be like a living temporal sculpture where there'll be living plants in there with sculptural works inside. And then I'm also creating a sound piece that goes with it, and so it'll be accessible virtually through a QR code, so people can hear and listen on their headphones. And for the opening reception, we'll actually have headphones for people to listen on, like a silent disco kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um,
Is it a open and closed or like something kind of like a botanical garden where is there a door on it or is it just open?
it's open, so
Okay.
it's literally like it's like an open piece of it's park district property, so it's part of the
Okay.
park, but it's just in between like the expressway and the lake. So it's the lake, the expressway, and then a small patch of land.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's
How
outdoors.
big? When you say a small patch, it's
I
probably a
mean,
bigger patch in
it
the.
could it could probably hold like 200 people comfortably outside.
Mhm. Got it.
Yeah,
Well, that's cool.
150, 200. Yeah,
Congratulations.
thank you.
Is this your first public piece in
This is
Chicago?
this is my first public piece. Yes, like this. Yeah.
Um, how do you feel about that? Like, do you think that's a good way to create where, people aren't buying and waiting for it to appreciate? Like, do you like that type of work where it's available to everyone?
I I do. I mean, I thought about this too. A lot of my work has always been public facing, and it's
Mm-hmm.
always been on the side of ephemeral, right? Like they're always an experience or um, a pop up or a performance. These sorts of things that don't necessarily have like a monetary value where you can buy it and have it, as an object, but it does have lasting effects, right? Like people remember these things, they remember how they felt, they remember the experience, what they maybe have learned, or maybe someone that they bonded with during that time period. Like there are other things that come from that, and it's a form of reprieve also, right? And that's, I would say, definitely a big part of the culture, right? That the party, not necessarily the party element, but the celebratory elements. And thinking about like Laura Philly is like it's celebratory. It's like
Yeah.
a gathering. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
How are you going to collect it? You can't, it's like to be experienced,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
That's cool. I can't wait to see it, especially this year where I'm going to be in Chicago quite a bit, seeing you in July. But this is you have to wear something, and I'll end it on, Sadie obviously Sadie and I also bonded on style. You know, Sadie is a very talented hairstylist naturally. She used to rock the cornrows, the braids, intricate hairstyles, got beautiful, highly textured hair. Sometimes it's blonde. How would you describe like your expression through your hair, which I found very important? I've photographed it many times.
Yeah.
Also, like, you know, what are you gonna wear to your open? Because you gotta wear something and you want it to be expressed. You celebrating yourself, right? All
Yes.
all all those mediums matter. So
Yeah, my hair was definitely important for me because growing up, everyone was always like trying to get in my hair and experiment, especially like having like a family full of hairstylists. And so at a certain point, I was like, I don't want nobody touching me. Like, I'm gonna learn how to do my own damn hair. And so, um, it was definitely some experimental things happening, especially like in the '80s with the banana clips and things that were really just bad designs and inventions.
yes.
Like it was really hard to get those things out my hair.
Hmm.
But I really thought I was doing something,
It's like, what?
because I had a little a little fro hog, and then I couldn't get that shit out my hair.
Right.
Um, but I learned how to braid. My cousins taught me how to braid and do cornrows um and then I would do the press, like sometimes I had my hair pressed, right, and then I had my hair curly, or do the twists, right.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that for me, like I just I just really could not commit to like one type of hairstyle. Like I tried to also do dreads, and that lasted probably for like 7 days because I just couldn't do the permanence. I never really relaxed my hair because of that. Like I couldn't do the permanence. Like I don't want my hair straight forever. I just want it like straight for a couple of days, and then I can do this other thing. So, um, it used to be, and in high school I had time. Like I would spend 6 hours, 8 hours, whatever
You
doing
really had
hair.
because they were really intricate and detailed. If I listen, if I figure out how to put some visuals on here, I always show you early black and white photos of these crazy braids. But yeah, I was like, girl, how are you doing all of this to your hair? Because my mom was like, get a perm, which I don't have one now. I never needed one, but you know how parents are like, it's too difficult.
Yeah.
Or
No, yeah.
they,
My mom was like, I'm done braiding your hair. Like,
oh, you know, say that your mom was like,
oh yeah.
I'm not doing it for. I might have to get you a perm. Did she perm your
No,
hair?
no. My dad actually was like,
Oh,
no, not having that. And I
mm,
did it like one time when I was young, and then I grew it out and cut it off because I didn't like it because it was like again like too permanent. And then
it was too
it was
straight.
too straight.
Yeah.
And then I did it once, like maybe I don't know, 14 years or some years ago, and my hair actually fell out. Like it just
Good
broke
God.
off. And like, when it started growing back, my hair just started breaking off. I was like, oh, so I just cut it off.
Um, and then as an artist, you always had fun, funky style. We went from baggy to skinny back to baggies, which isn't it so funny? The
Yeah.
90s, the chokers and the everybody so baggy, looking like I don't know what, but looking like a Souls of Mischief video or
Right.
something. I find it so cute that my Gen Z employees,
Yeah.
you know, pop in the baggy to work. I'm kind of like, can we not?
Yeah, they gotta learn how to dress it up a little bit. But yeah,
Mm,
I still like my
mm.
overalls. That's never gonna go out of style.
Hey, I still wear overalls. I still wear overalls. Hey, sometimes you got to take the one
Right.
side off, rock the one
Right.
side. No gang affiliation
Right.
though, you know. Just having a little fun.
Right.
But thank you for being on. You have to wear something after my 6 month hiatus. I couldn't think of a better way to reintroduce it, but to intellectualize and politic it up with you. My bestie and bonuses forever. Thank you for being here. How can people keep up with you? I know you take breaks so you could be present, but what's the best way to find Sadie Woods?
IG is probably the best. and I'm not gonna upgrade to no other platforms. So
She said she done with all of that,
no,
but more
I've
us.
been, I've been, I did Friendster, I did MySpace, I did everything else in between, and I've arrived at Instagram, and I'm like, that's cool for right now. Anyway, Instagram is
Is it
fantastic.
Sadie Woods?
It's
Just your name, or is it
Wood
LC?
Sadie, so Wood
Wood
Sadie
say
and one S.
got it. Okay.
Yes.
Well, I will see you soon. Everyone, if you're in Chicago, please go. The opening is April 8th. Please go and take a look at it. It is free, it is open, it is democratic, and we appreciate you. Until next time, I say peace.
Peace. Thank you.